Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very empowering show coming right up with special guests, Julie Potiker, and she's here to talk to us about her new book, Life Falls Apart, But You Don't Have to. Julie is an attorney, author, and mindfulness expert who began seriously studying and investigating mindfulness after graduating the mindfulness-based stress reduction program at the University of California, San Diego. She went on to study with Brené Brown and became a graduate of Rick Hanson's positive neuroplasticity training, as well as a mindful self-compassion program created by Kristen Neff and Christopher Germer. She holds a BGS from the University of Michigan and a DG from George Washington University. So let's welcome to the show, Julie Potiker.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here, Marianne. Thanks for having me.
Oh, what a pleasure it is to have you here, and what a great book. I just love your book. Once I picked it up, couldn't put it down.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. I'm getting a lot of great juju from it. It's helping people, and that's my goal.
Well, and so why don't you share with us a little bit, about the inspiration behind your book?
Well, I was at a mindfulness retreat at Spirit Rock in Northern California. It was a week of science and meditation with Rick Hanson. And it was actually before he was my mentor. He's been my mentor ever since then. And during the silent retreat, I would be in my little room at night, and I'd be journaling, and I'm not really a journaler. And just all this content was pouring out of me. And when I got home, I decided I was going to write a book, because for years I had been on this crazy internal journey where I had thought that I might be having a brain tumor, and I went to a neurologist because the wrong words were coming out of my mouth. I'd say cappuccino instead of cappuccino, or maginal instead of magical, and each time it would happen, it would freak me out. So I went to a neurologist, and he cleared my brain, but then asked during the psychosocial, which I like to say is psychosocial because I felt so psycho, what my life was like. And when he learned that I had 3 teenagers with ADD, and that my parents were aging, and I was the only kid in town with boots on the ground, and that I was, real involved in the community in leadership positions, he said, your brain's on overdrive. You need mindfulness-based stress reduction. And I said, what? Have you ever heard of John Kabat-Zinn? I said, no. So I took the class at UCSD. It's a 40-year-old curriculum. It's fabulous. But what I learned was, wow, there's an entire world here of healing and health and wellness that I know absolutely nothing about. I'm a recovering attorney, so I didn't go to school for health and wellness. So, and now, thank gosh, you learn this stuff in law school. But back in the 80s, when I went to law school, there was no mention of this stuff. So I sort of went deep, Marianne. I started taking brain science classes, neuroscience classes, and then I took mindful self-compassion, which was a new curriculum, which was built on John Kabat-Zinn's MBSR foundation, and it was transformative. And then a couple of years later, they decided to train teachers to be mindful self-compassion teachers, and I'm like, I'm in. And so I started teaching, but because I kept taking other trainings, I kept folding other people's work into the curriculum. And so I needed to change the name of the curriculum from Mindful Self-Compassion to Mindful Methods for Life so that Mindful Self-Compassion's brand could be pure. But I wanted to have Brené Brown's work in there, and Rick Hanson's work in there, and Dan Siegel's work in there, and all these other people who were out there doing really quality curriculum to help people live with less suffering and find more ease. And so that's what I did. And during that whole thing, I started writing this book because I wanted to help more people than the 12 to 15 people that could be in front of my face in San Diego, California. That was a really long answer. Sorry.
No, I'm glad. And the thing is because our listeners always want to know, how does someone start? How does someone get to this place where they're like, gosh, I need to start working on this, or I need to discover the answer to this? And the reason is because so many people can then resonate with what's going on. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've kind of mixed up on my words too, and kind of going, okay, what's going on here?
Right, because you think, oh my God, something's wrong with my brain. You don't necessarily think, wow, I need to start a meditation practice. I mean, I need to start a meditation practice? What? That wasn't even in my frame of reference. And now I teach meditation. It's kind of a riot, really.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because you approach it on many different levels too, where you're talking in regards to not just what's going on with you personally, but how it relates to you in your family setting. And I think a lot of people can understand, because when you talk about teenage daughters, and yeah, well, they kind of lose their little mind at, sometimes 12, sometimes 13,
Yeah.
And then they resurface sometime later,
Right. Yeah, no, the teen years are really hard. They can be really hard on parents, because kids are trying to figure out who they are, and so they try on who they're not, is my experience. And just everything that goes on with them differentiating themselves from us us meaning parents, can be super painful. And for me to know that I could put my hand on my heart and say to myself, oh, Julie, sweetheart, that was really tough. She really hurt your feelings. Wow. And baby myself and soothe myself, took the anger or frustration or, sometimes it's fear, took all of those emotions that don't feel good and down-regulated them for me.
Yeah, and kind of move them. And that's where that whole mindful practice kind of started to become a big portion of your life. Is that how that integrated?
That is how that integrated. I needed to find something to balance myself. And then when I started teaching, I realized, and I think it's because I'm not a psychologist and because I'm trained as a lawyer, that I'm not New Age. So I can cut through all this stuff. Not that I'm dissing New Age. I love it. I think it's awesome. But I'm able to teach people that are skeptical, that wouldn't walk through the door of somebody that was more New Agey than myself. So I'm able to teach people. I'm able to say, look, this is what's going on. This is what's happening in your skull, in your brain. These are the hormones that are getting bathed through your body. This is what you need to do to stop this. Let's do it. It's for your health. And so I developed a following of people that were like, wow, okay, I'm going to do this. This is important. This is really healthy. It's not just I don't know. I mean, it's serious self-care.
Yeah. Kind of moving. I love how you start your book off where you're sharing your personal story about faith. And it's I think so many people can resonate with that, because you have 4 things listed: yoga, meditation, studying, textbook studying, and prayer. And within that 4 group, most people may have an angst with one of those things. Going, I can do a little meditation and maybe book study, and prayer, but yoga, that might not be my thing. Or, maybe I'm not really good at studying, and so I feel really pressured with that. What was the one thing that, and you showed this in your book, that really kind of put the brakes on for a little bit?
I just didn't feel comfortable with prayer. I am comfortable with prayer now in a very universal way, which I became comfortable after doing years of loving kindness meditation. One day it dawned on me that I was actually praying. And I think that the reason I wasn't comfortable with prayer previously was because I didn't like the God language in the prayer book, and I'm super literal. And so I didn't like the idea of an all-seeing, all-knowing, omnipresent, omnipotent being. On the one hand, I didn't resonate with that. On the other hand, when you're realizing that you're part of the world and that we're all connected and that there's something bigger than us, because you get the feeling when you're doing loving kindness meditation that you're part of common humanity and that we're all connected and that there is a universal energy or life force or whatever. And if you realize that that's praying and that maybe that's G-O-D, you know what I mean? Maybe that's what that is. Then I all of a sudden had an aha, and I said, oh, my gosh, I am praying. Okay, that's cool. I can deal with that. It might not necessarily be to the Christian God, or it might not be to Jesus, or it might not be to the Jewish God, or it might not be to Allah. It might be to Buddha. But then I realized it doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter. It's just that you're wishing and hoping and praying for peace and safety and love and ease to all sentient beings. So it kind of unhooked me from being hung up, I guess.
Well, and you talk about unhooking in your book, and I'd love for you to share a little bit more about what that means, because I think for some people, they may get it, and this is probably what makes you so good at what you do and what made you such a great attorney, too, is having that literal mind. And so for our literal thinkers out there, they probably are going, okay, so what is she talking about with this unhooked? What does that all mean?
Well, are you making reference to the unhook your parenting thing?
Yes.
Okay, so this is really kind of funny. You know that statement, you're only as happy as your least happy child?
I've heard that, yes.
Yeah, so I started off my chapter on parenting, you're only as happy as your least happy child. That statement was written by either an idiot or a masochist, and my editor took it out.
Well, I do.
She's like, you don't want to insult people. People do say that. And I said, yeah, I know. So I watered it way down, and I said that I would have been an unhappy cookie, and I was an unhappy cookie until I learned how to unhook my happiness from that of my kids. And I learned how to do that by taking in the good. So by continually, and this is Rick Hanson's positive neuroplasticity training work, and I took his professional training class, so that I could teach his stuff. I was teaching his stuff first anyway, but then he got it together beautifully and did a 6-day training for clinicians that I took. So how you do that is you want to have good things firing and wiring in your brain, because we're ruminating and we're worrying because we're primates. We're wired to ruminate and worry. So when we're not engaged in a task and our mind is wandering, it can be pretty negative. They say it's like Velcro for negative things and Teflon for positive things. So you have to put in way more positive things because negativity is what's going on in there. So how do you do that? How you do that is when you notice something fabulous, you really notice it for a breath or two. So it's like, wow, look at that sunset. What's for dinner? No, It's look at that sunset. Wow, look at that sunset. And then you look at the colors, you feel in your body. This is the mindfulness piece that I teach people. Stuff's going on in your body. It's not just in your brain. You don't just live from your neck up. So in your body, once you learn how to feel it, there might be a feeling of expansion or of warmth or of some awesomeness. You let that land for a couple breaths, you've rewired your brain for happiness and resilience. So if you're feeling particularly upset because your kid is upset, you can put your hand on your heart or where you find it soothing. That's the soothing touch that I talk about. You can ground yourself through the soles of your feet or do a mindful walk like I talk about. And then you can pull up a memory, because you might not be feeling awesome at that minute because your kid's not awesome, right? But you need to get to awesomeness yourself, because you can't go down to the sea in ships every time your kid is miserable, because you'll be miserable if you have a miserable kid. And people have miserable kids. So you need to continually be changing the channel, putting in positive memories that you have, because you might not be witnessing something gorgeous at that moment. And then after you do that many, many times a day over the course of months and then years, your wandering mind will be less negative. You will be happier even when your default mode network is just hanging out there.
Yeah, be able to bring it. Well, and it's so important for people to hear, because I think a lot of times people get stuck going, how am I going to make this better? How am I going to get out of, this area of just not feeling happy or fulfilled or whatever the case is. And they need a roadmap.
Yeah. No, listen, I have 3 kids, and one of them, the twins, struggled with depression and anxiety kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum, and one of them had really serious clinical depression, and I talk about it in my book because I got her permission to do so. And that was the kid that was a cutter, which is just, for any parents who are listening, if they have a kid who's injuring themselves, it's excruciating, and it's so frightening because you don't know where it's going to end, and you don't know if it's going to end in them dead. It's terrible. So I have a whole section on that in the book with good resources, and I feel like I walk through hell with my kids. So I'm happy to help. I'm happy to show what worked for me, so that I wasn't rolled up in a ball on the floor of my closet.
Well, I think anyone having a child that is harming themselves would just be kind of at their wits' end to try to figure out, how can I fix this? How can I make things better?
Right.
And so it helps to hear other parents going through this, what they can do to try to improve things.
Right. And they have to do self-care, because if you're completely whacked when your kid is suffering, you're not going to be helpful to help them pull through it. Plus, there's that whole mirror neuron things. We could get in. This is the fun part of the neuroscience, right? So you want to be able to be happy and healthy and solid, so that when you're together with the person that's suffering, you can try to raise them up by having them mirror your neurons. If you're both funky, you're just going to keep going down, 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 down.
Let me get down. Well, and one of the methods that you talk about in your book, which is Rick Hanson's mindful method to heal, to rewire your brain. I'd love for you to talk about that with us a little bit, because I think
that's what I was just doing. That's the taking in the good. That's Rick's stuff. I do that. I do that kind of unconsciously now, many, many times a day. And if I'm feeling upset, I'll pull up a memory of a positive mental state to take it in, to let it land. That's his magnificent contribution, one of the many that he's made to mankind's well-being so far.
Yeah, to pull things into a new direction. I think a lot of times when people realize that they can work on rewiring their brain from that negative thought process, which, Rick talks about, and you mentioned in your book as well, that we're kind of predetermined for. It allows us to kind of have some hope that, there can be some really lasting change. And it's not just a bunch of...
Oh, my gosh. That's it. Yeah. That's it, Marianne. The fact that you can control your brain wiring, that you, Marianne, can make yourself a happier person, that's magnificently hopeful.
Yeah. Sometimes it almost sounds like it's too good to be true for people, but with you as an attorney coming and talking about this, it makes a lot more sense for people who maybe aren't, they're not into anything that's kind of considered woo-woo, and they're looking for something more general and more mainstream.
Yeah. There's a lot written on this topic now by all different kinds of people. So if somebody's interested, actually on my website, there's a fantastic reading and resource section, and they can see everybody else's books that I think are terrific, and they can also see links to other people's websites and other people's newsletters, because there's great stuff out there. And if you're getting really good stuff in your inbox every day, that's positive brain health. If you're reading all that good stuff and it makes you feel good, it's positive brain health.
Well, and so let's talk about, you kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, mindful self-compassion.
Mm-hmm.
So, why don't you explain that a little bit for our listeners and why we would want to develop that?
Okay,
so
it
kind of goes hand in hand with what we've been talking about.
Yeah, so there's 3 components to what mindful self-compassion is. The first one is mindfulness. The second one is self-kindness, which is treating yourself like you would treat a dear friend. And the third is common humanity. So mindfulness is the basic, you need to know that you're suffering to treat yourself with kindness, right? And then the self-kindness is all the tools that you use to talk nicely to yourself. And there's a whole unit on the inner critic in there, which is the work of internal family systems from Dr. Schwartz. And I cite the original source of all this stuff. So even if it was something that I learned that was in the mindful self-compassion curriculum, I'll put from whence it came, so that people can go, like I always like to go to the original source material and read everything, but I'm a complete geek. But there's a lot of geeks out there that would do the same thing I'm doing. So I'm always directing people to the original source so that they can read everything if they want to get their hands on all of this. And then common humanity, it's like somebody said, I think it was Michelle Becker, who's a really great teacher of mindful self-compassion. She coined the phrase loving connected presence for the idea of really the essence of mindful self-compassion.
Well, and so at what point did you make the connection between mindfulness and prayer?
I think that I'm Jewish by birth. I think that I was at a Jewish retreat and the Institute for Jewish Spirituality, and I was sort of sitting in the back of the little sanctuary, and every time they started praying, I was crying, and I'm not a crier. I mean, it would be really good if I was. It's super healthy, like for those listeners that are criers, good on you. But it's always been hard for me to cry, and I was sitting there day after day with tears literally sheeting down my face. So something was obviously going on that I wasn't connected to figuring out, and that's when I figured out with the loving kindness phrases that I actually was praying.
And then
did that make any sense?
It makes complete sense. Yeah, because I was actually raised Catholic, and so prayer is more, and I have lots of Catholic friends who have a very deep practice, and for people who are Catholic, it feels, at least for me, it felt like I was doing a lot of repetition.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of the different types of chanting. So when it came to actual prayer for me, it was like at a point where it's like, what do you say? Because you're used to doing things a certain way. And so breaking out of kind of that shell and being able to develop my own conversation with Father, the universe, God, whatever people choose to call that, for me it has become a very personal relationship. And it's really interesting how we make that journey from where we are with prayer to really kind of understanding what a personal connection that can be.
Right, and then I feel like when you said that, I got this feeling in my body like, oh, like that's so precious. You know, like it's really precious that you have a connection with the universe. And I feel like each of us have this connection with the universe if we're lucky enough to find it. And then because it's the universe and the universe is all one, we're all connected. And that's cool.
Yeah. It's able to, and a lot of it's allowing too, you know, because for me, I think a lot of it was going, gosh, this is what prayer should look like.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I chose to kind of recreate that, how different it is from what I do today.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think when I was a kid and I was at temple or synagogue and I was like reading the prayer book, I didn't agree with what it said. And it was really intellectual. I don't think I had anything going on in my heart. And it was after learning mindfulness meditation from mindfulness-based stress reduction and then a lot of other classes after that, and of course mindful self-compassion, that I notice what's going on in my heart all the time. It's like something's happening in my chest. It's contracting, it's expanding, it's warm, it's cold. I mean, it's really interesting. And I think that when you get that radiating love thing coming like out of your chest to the world when you're doing loving kindness meditation, which is like, you know, may you be safe, may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you live with ease, and you're repeating these gorgeous wishes. You've got this like light beam coming out of your heart to the universe. That's prayer, man.
And you know, and it can be really easy. It doesn't have to be really difficult, you know, a difficult transition or a difficult leap to get to where you're having that kind of a relationship.
Yeah, it's amazing. I never would have believed it had it not happened in my body. But I just wasn't aware. I really wasn't. I don't think I was pretty much aware of what was going on from my jaw down. I mean, I knew I was grinding my teeth, so I knew something was stressing, you know. I had to have a tooth laminated from grinding my teeth from, you know, TMJ from stress. I had all kinds of gastrointestinal problems. You know, I thought, well, that's just how my body is. No, dummy. That's not how your body needs to be.
Like, it's not that way. It doesn't have to be that way.
Right.
So, and
right. You could be much healthier. Wow. Much healthier.
Oh, gosh, what a great gift that would be. I mean, my goodness. And I think that's what a lot of people look to have is just a peaceful, healthy existence.
Right. Right. And it's hard in today's day and age. Somebody asked me just recently about that, and I said, stop watching the news. Mm-hmm. You want to be healthier? You want to be a little bit more peaceful? Don't watch the news. Well, they're like, what? What? I'm like, I know, I'm not kidding. Don't watch the news. You can read the newspaper because you can kind of edit and skim and you're not getting audio-visual coming at you. But don't stop watching the news. You can't control that horror and trauma and do anything about it. Don't take it in.
Yeah.
You know, so there's little tricks that you can do like that. I know people that are like junkies for CNN and Fox. Well, they got to watch because of everything going on in the United States of America, which we won't need to get into, but it's painful on both sides, right, of the aisle. People are in pain on both sides of the aisle. So I have friends that watch all the different newses. They watch the right, they watch the left, they watch the middle because they want to find out what's going on. I'm like, oh, my God, turn off the television. Stop it.
Well, and so when you have friends or people that come to you and they say, gosh, you know, I'm just too busy for meditation. What's your advice to these people other than, of course, you know, turning off the TV and disconnecting from that kind of sensory overload at times?
Well, there's a lot of meditation in daily life things that you can do. They're really not meditations, though. They're kind of more like mindfulness. Like if you're brushing your teeth, if you have an electric toothbrush, there's usually like a 2-minute timer on those things. And if you close your eyes so that you're minimizing the distractions of looking in the mirror, if you close your eyes while you're brushing your teeth and you feel the toothbrush on your teeth and you taste the toothpaste and you just sort of like really zone in on the whole experience, what's going on in your mouth, that's actually a 2-minute mindfulness activity. And if you're like drinking your coffee or tea in the morning, whatever your morning ritual is, if you just pause and take a breath and feel the warmth and look at the color and then take just the first mindful sip or two, that's a mindfulness activity. If you're cooking and you're not ruminating and worrying, but you're paying attention to what you're doing when you're cooking, that's a mindfulness activity, and all these things add up to brain health. But for the people that really say they don't have time, I call bullshit on that. I do, because everybody can put in their earbuds and do a less than 5-minute meditation on Insight Timer, which is free, so there's no excuse. You know what I mean? So yeah. Insight Timer, I think, is the best. There used to be 52 or 3 meditations. Now there's like a gazillion, but they have it categorized by amount of minutes and then also by subject matter. So everybody can do that, and I think they should. I think they should do 5 minutes once a day, and then they're going to realize, I'm less reactive. Maybe I should do 10 minutes. Let's see how that feels.
And be able to kind of push that. I know when I first started meditating, it was kind of the same thing. It's like, let's do 5 minutes. And then that was such a relaxing, comfortable experience. Before I knew I was doing 10 and then 20 and then 30.
Exactly.
It's kind of easy to kind of just pop into meditation, you know?
What's your practice now, your meditation practice?
I do 30 minutes in the morning and 30 minutes at night, but that's what I enjoy. I mean, if I had less time, it'd be 5 minutes. You know,
that's so
but
awesome.
I still have that. Yeah.
No.
How about you? What's yours like?
Well, it's funny because I drop in and out of mindfulness activities all day, on and off all day, but then I still want to do a guided meditation once or twice a day. And I'll do it anywhere from 5 minutes to 30 minutes, depending on, what's going on, how much time I have. And I love it. I mean, it makes a big difference in my life. I recently found one because I was in New York City pitching my book 2 weeks ago, and so I had to go to sleep early because I'm on West Coast time, and I needed to be up. And so it's like, how am I going to make myself go to sleep at 1 in the morning in New York? It's like 10 o'clock in California. I don't normally go to sleep that early. I found a sleep meditation on Insight Timer that was an hour long, and it was fantastic. And that's how I made myself go to sleep all week.
Oh, wow. That worked out good.
Right?
Well, Julie, I mean, we can talk for hours, obviously, because you really know your stuff, and you have been down that path, and you have, your book is a great resource for people, parents, anyone looking to make that mindful transition into a peaceful life, regardless of what's going on around them. Where can people connect with you and be part of your community?
I have an engaged community, which I'm really proud of and love, on Facebook. If you go to Mindful Methods for Life on Facebook, and then every 2 weeks I do new blog content, and so people.
Do you have a website for that?
Yeah, it's mindfulmethodsforlife.com, but it's also posted on the Facebook. But mindfulmethodsforlife.com, and so it's FOR, it's not the number 4, so it's mindfulmethodsforlife.com. There's great resources on there, all the blogs and everybody else's free stuff. And there's also a podcast that's free where I'm leading meditations called Balanced Mind with Julie Potiker.
So, great. Well, Julie, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
It's a privilege. I'm so happy that you wanted me.
Well, thank you, Julie. It's been such a pleasure to spend this time with you. Again, if you want to connect with Julie, you can at her website, mindfulmethodsforlife.com. Make sure to connect with her on social media and be part of her community. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Thursday, Friday, and Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.